And what we're doing with this organization is we're taking all of the listing information that we have in the state of Texas. So we do work with a couple of groups within the state. I'll zoom in a little bit. We have an organization in El Paso, so we work with their association. We have one up here in Lubbock, of course, MetroTex. We have one small one out here, East Texas, which is Tyler, that they work with us. Right down here where you see all of these dots, this is Houston. So Comgate works with us. And then, of course, we have a group here in Central Texas that participates with Catalyst. So you have a lot of data here as well. Catalyst is going to be moving into the San Antonio and Austin market at some point, probably the next couple of months. We're going to be researching the inventory in those markets. So that's kind of the last two markets we have that we need to fill in. And so the nice thing about that is MetroTex users, you'll have access to all the inventory we have in the entire state of Texas. And I'll talk a little bit more of that in a little bit. But the benefit to the partnership that we have with the Texas Realtors is your listings that you put in here that you market the for sale and for lease. That's what all this is here. So they will get access at this site. So essentially you're getting statewide exposure through this platform. We also have our Catalyst has a national database. It's called Commercial Exchange. Excuse me, this site's commercialexchange.com. So we take the listings that we have all throughout the US, through all the markets that we have, and we will push that data up to Commercial Exchange. We do a lot of SEO. We just recently turned on through Google Ad Buys, some keywords that we're buying through like Google searches. So someone goes in and types in Dallas, Texas, commercial real estate. We're buying those keywords through Google. So we're going to be pulling Commercial Exchange up to the top. So the consumer who's sitting in New York that's looking to invest in the DFW market would actually be able to go to Commercial Exchange. Again, your listings would be exposed here. So you're really getting the local service exposure, statewide and national. So we're trying to stitch this together as much as we can, because the name of the game, as we know it and you know it, is leads, leads, leads. How many phone calls can we push your way in emails with questions about your property to move that inventory? So I just wanted to let you know that those products, those websites are available. So I'm actually logged in as Belinda. Most of you, I'm sure, know Belinda. Logged into her account. And this is what you see when you actually would go to MetroTex. You go to the login button here and you log in. This is what you're going to be taken to, which is your individual dashboard. So it's going to recognize you by your name. And there's a lot of functionality that you can do here. One of the first things you may want to do is go to your preferences down here and set up your preferences. That's going to direct and guide the communications you receive into your email inbox. So you can establish things like property types, geographical areas, whether it's for sale, for lease. So that's going to help you determine when you do get an email through the platform that it's something that you're going to want to open because you told us this is what you want. So it's really a filter so that you can filter things out that you don't want to receive. The thing I want to focus on here is this broadcast email functionality. And you can also get to that up here at the top where I have this email button. This is going to allow you as a subscriber to take the inventory that you have today, your for sale and your for lease, and push this out to thousands of brokers that we have in the database in the DFW area. So we've gone out and gathered about 3,500 commercial brokers. They may not all be commercial brokers. It could be appraisers and things of that nature, some verticals. But you have the ability to, most of them will be commercial brokers, but to push your information out to them, this is part of the platform. You can send up to 5 of these a day. So these are some that have been sent through Belinda. And you'll see here, again, this is driven by those preferences. So even though we might have 3,500 people, some of the preferences have been set up that may say, I only want inventory in this county or this property type. So you'll see the numbers vary here as far as how many this went to. So in this case, this particular email that was sent on February the 11th at 10 in the morning went to 2,000 subscribers, 449 subscribers opened it. And when they open it, this is what they see. This is what I get in my inbox. It's going to have your logo, the property, whatever information you have in the system about the property. If you have a flyer attached to it, you can choose to attach the flyer. So I can open up your personal flyer. And then, of course, it has your contact info. And this is essentially what comes into the inbox. It's really, really simple to send these. You just go up here to new broadcast, These are the listings that you have. It's going to pull those forward. Choose the one that you send. So if I wanted to send this one, I would click it, just hit the next button. If you have a property that's an office building, let's say, that's got 3 spaces available, it's going to show you the 3 spaces you have, so suites A, B, and C. If you have multiple, you can choose all 3, 2 of them, 1 of them, whatever you want to send. You just choose it. If you have a flyer tied to the listing, right here would give you the option to attach that flyer. This would be a flyer you personally create that's attached to the listing. She doesn't have one, so that's not an option there. Again, you hit next. It's going to pull forward this information that's tied to the listing. You can change any of this if you want to tweak it a little. The next button is going to show you what it's going to look like. And then you just hit the submit button, and it's going to go out to those thousands of individuals. And then as that is sent, well, it'll drop it up here at the top, and then it'll show you the date, the time. It'll show you how many people it went to. And if you just sit here and refresh your screen, you'll see this number will grow. And on average, you can see she's getting quite a few responses to this. And of course, that's a push technology, allowing you to push that inventory out so that people know what you have available. And of course, the goal there is hoping that someone gets it, that opens it, is interested, and they reach out to you with questions, try to put a deal together. So again, you can send up to 5 of these a day, and that is a 24-hour period. So if you send, say this morning, you sent 10 of them or 5 of them at 10 this morning, you can't send any more till 10 the next day. All right, so it is a 24-hour period. So that's the broadcast email functionality. One thing I also want everyone to understand, and some people don't know this, but to get back to that dashboard, if you click the Catalyst Research logo here, it'll take you back to the dashboard. That's kind of your home button. So it gets you back to this page. So the next thing, I just wanted to go and do a search. Just really show you how easy it is to do a search when you're looking for inventory. You can just click the search button. It's going to pull up a map, of course, which is going to pull in a bunch of dots. So what are these dots? And you have this grid over here. If you want to get rid of these properties, just hit this little button and it pushes them off and you can pull them back. All of these properties, these dots you see, represent asset categories. So under type, you see the colors represent the assets. So green is going to be your retail, office, industrial. If you choose one of these, it's going to say, if I pick industrial, it's going to give me a bunch of subcategories that I can specifically choose. And then you see now all I have back here are a bunch of blue dots. So that's all the industrial buildings that we have. So what I wanted to focus on in this particular screen is, oops, sorry about that, accidentally clicked on that. Let me get that off my screen. What I wanted to focus here is letting you guys know how much data that we actually have in the system. All right. So right now what we're looking at are property records. A property record, if I click on one, it's going to be just general information about the building. All right. So you can see right here, there's no current listings tied to this particular building. If you hit this expand button, it's going to give you just general information. A lot of this comes from assessor's offices. So what type of property is it? Retail, strip center, multi-tenant, the size of the building, how many acres, number of buildings, floors, location info, building information, some details. And then down here we have legal owner. So this is a LLC. One of the things that we're going to start putting in, I believe later in March to April, are going to be true owner information. So right now we see that this is owned by Lucky 3 Forwarding Crossing LLC. Most of the clients you work with probably have, or maybe you own some of your own buildings, have them in an LLC. That doesn't give me the ability to know who the true owner is. So we're going to start adding true owner information in, which is going to be actually the person that owns this. So in that case, it might be John Smith, and if we will get a phone number, an email address, we'll give that to you. So this is going to give you the ability to reach out to this person. This is an off-market listing. There's nothing available on this particular property at this time, but you could reach out to that person to see if they might be willing to sell it if you have a client in need for something specific like this property, or if they're at 100% occupancy, as a broker, you could reach out to them and say, hey, I know you're at 100%, but if you ever have an availability for a vacancy, I'm more than happy to help you, be your broker to get you a new tenant. So that's what a lot of people use this for. So we're going to start adding this information here in the next month or so, and we'll tie that to all of these properties. And then as the inventory changes hands and the person that owns it sells it, the comp will show the seller, and then we'll add the new buyer to that. So that'll just be a maintenance process. So as you see right now, we have, and just on this screenshot in the DFW area, we have currently at the top of the page up here, 83,700 buildings, right? So that's just commercial buildings, and you can look at all the information about those buildings you want. I'm going to go ahead and tell the system, give me search for sell and for lease. It's going to go in and filter that data, and this number is going to change. So right now we have right at 13,000 availabilities in the system. And what does that mean to you? That means that's what we have that are for lease and for sale. So you see there's 6,000 buildings, but there's 13,000 listings. So spaces, if you will. What that means is you might have an office building that's got 6 spaces available in it, right? So the spaces will always be larger than the buildings themselves. So that's what we currently have as far as availabilities. And we also have comps. And so I'm going to change that to comps. This number up here is going to change. And so that's changed to show you that we now have 27,000 comps. And you can click on any of these dots. And again, it's going to pull that up over here. It's going to give you the building information. And then in this case, this is a transaction. It's sold, and it's going to give you the transaction data. So you can see this is kind of information that we have. In the state of Texas, it will be a little bit difficult to get some of the comp data just based on the fact that it's non-disclosure. So we'll get as much data as we can and attach to the listings. Now, as a subscriber, when you close your property out, you can put the sales price in if you want, or any other information. And I want to make sure, sorry, one second. Sorry about that. I want to make sure everyone fully understands that the comps are not visible to the general public. You can only see comps when you log into the database. Availabilities are to the general public, so we want to get your listing in front of as many eyeballs as possible, but nobody can see the comps unless they're a subscriber. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is, I'm going to type in up here, Texas. So I'm going to do a search in the state of Texas. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So of course, Texas is now highlighted. And I'm going to continue with the same search that I just did. So again, we're looking at comps right now in the state of Texas. So we have almost 50,000 comps throughout the state. And you have access to all of this information if you choose to look at it. And then if I go back and look at availabilities throughout the state of Texas, we have, my screen changes and updates. We have almost 35,000 availabilities. So this is going to be everything throughout the states. A lot of that's going to be down in Houston, as you can see here. And as we start researching Austin and San Antonio, you'll start to see these numbers grow, because if there's 8,000 or 9,000 availabilities between those two cities, then we're going to add that to this mix here. So you'll be up to 42, 45,000. And then I'm going to change this to just the property records. So just in the state of Texas, we have 215,000 property records. Again, that's just records referring to the building itself. So you have access to all of this information. You can get in here and search all of this. When you click on these records or these listings, we find a decent one here. You can go in and you can create all types of reports that are available. So when you go down to the available reports, you can basically pull up, we have around 10 to 15 reports on these properties, and you can do that at the property record level or the listing level. So you just go into this and you'll be able to pull all of this information up. We have links back to the parcel. So the parcel link back to whatever assessor office that is. So if you click this, it redirects you. In this case, it would be back to Tarrant County. And so anyway, you have all this information that you have available to review, and you can create all kinds of reports and everything off the record, the comp, and the availability. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview. There's a lot more that you can do with this platform. You can save searches, you can create lists and various things. We are going to be setting up training sessions. We did quite a few earlier, the 2 weeks of February. We didn't do any last week because I live in San Antonio, so I was down out of power and water for 3 days like most of you guys were. So it was a brutal week here in San Antonio. But we're going to start setting up next week. And Steve, I'll get this information to you when we get all the communication put together. We're going to start doing training classes every other week. So we're going to have one the 1st of March, then we'll have one the 3rd week of March, and then so on and so forth for the next couple of months. And we can set up additional sessions as needed for your market. So that's just a quick overview. There's a lot more you can do with this platform. So I am more than happy to take any questions. I'll give you my contact information. If you want to reach out to me for a personal demo, please feel free to do so. Again, Shane Hayes. My direct number is 210-215-9509. My email is Shane, SHANE @Catalyst. Catalyst is spelled up here at the top left, CATYLIST.com. So feel free to call me or email me and to set up a personal demo. I'll be more than happy to do that to walk you through in more detail. So with that being said, unless there's any questions, I'll toss it back to you, Steve.
Shane, I think it's up to you. Charlandra, were there any questions?
Yes, there are 3 questions from Tim Viller. Question number 1, true owner information. Where do you get that from?
We have a couple of sources that we basically buy that, and we purchase that data from various sources, and a lot of it's coming from, you know, when the title gets completed and it goes into the title company, and they have the transition from the seller to the new owner. So we acquire these data sets, and we recently acquired that information about 5 months ago. We've been adding it to markets that we are currently in. So MetroTex being a new market that we'll be launching in the DFW area, we haven't quite got to add that in yet, but we will be including that data. I'm hoping towards the end of March, early April. Excuse me. It will take us a couple of weeks to a month to get that in. But once we get it all attached to all of those buildings, those 80,000 buildings, it'll just be a maintenance at that point when the transaction takes place to just change that. So it'll be a lot easier to handle. But we do purchase that data from mostly from title companies and assessors' offices, things of that nature.
Okay. Question number 2, do you withhold it on listings upon listings agents' requests?
Like do not add it? Like I'm assuming that's it, or we do not add that true owner data, or are you asking me for listings? I'm not quite sure what you're asking there.
For listings, if the listing agent asks you to remove that, will you?
The
CoStar will not.
The true owner data?
Yes.
We're going to add the true owner information to every property, which is a core field to the record itself. So once we have it, it's going to be there. Once we add it, we won't take it down. It'll be there. But that's, again, only visible when you're logged into the system. The general public can't see that information.
Is it available to all or only subscribers?
Subscribers.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another question from John Lucas. Is there a restriction for how often you can email blast the same property?
No, it's all, the only restriction is 5 blasts a day. If you want to blast the same property 5 times, I mean, that's up to you, but the downside to sending too many is people can unsubscribe from you specifically. So if you start sending just 5 a day every day, the chances are that people will start to unsubscribe and they won't get your personal e-blasts anymore. So we do recommend that you spread that out, you know, over a period of a week, maybe send a couple here and a couple there. It's up to you however many you want to do, but you know, I just don't want to see people getting the, you know, unsubscribed to, and then your listing is not getting in front of as many people as it could. And with that being said, I want to also just toss this out. We don't have any limit to the number of listings that you can put in. So I know those of you that may use LoopNet, you know, you pay so much for 5 and then you pay more for each one or whatever. Ours is unlimited. So if you have 5 listings or 100 listings, there's no additional charge that you have to pay. And everything in our database that you can access is everything. We don't charge you all the cart stuff. So it's all for the one fee that Steve mentioned earlier.
Awesome. I know that we might have a few more questions. Shane, before you go, would you mind typing your, in the chat box, type your, the information that you gave in case we didn't write it down. And that would be helpful. Charlandra, were there any last minute questions? We probably need to move on to our panelists for the sake of our time.
No, I think we covered them all.
Okay.
Right, I'm going to type that in, and then I'm going to head out, so I'll get that information in, and then thanks again for your time, and you guys have a wonderful day.
We appreciate your time, Shane. Thank you very much. So great. While he's working on that, I think we'll move on to our awesome panelists. We have Victor Russell, we have Tim Veeler, we have Tom Clark, and we have Murphy Cheatham. And all of these guys bring a wealth of knowledge. I think, Steve, do you have some slides you're going to share?
Yeah, make sure I'm unmuted. Can you? Okay, so yeah, we do have slides. Basically, we're going to have slides for each of the gentlemen here. Tim, you're going to have to share yours when we're ready. But we'll go ahead and start off. Victor, we've got you, I believe, as the first slide. So we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. And I want to commend Shane on the work that he's doing to get MetroTex into the commercial business. It's an interesting time that we have here in Dallas, Texas, to say the least. And I'm Victor Russell. I'm with MMR Realty Advisors, founder and managing principal. And we have a commercial mortgage banking and a commercial real estate brokerage operation. Both of our combinations, we probably produce between the mortgage banking side and the real estate brokerage side. 2019 was 130 million, and we'll probably see 100 million even this year, if not a little bit more, understanding some industries are a little bit more in purgatory than others. But after 43 years and 26 years of it here in the Dallas, Texas area, it's been a blast to get through the RTC days, to get through the 2008-9 economic blowout, and here we are with something new called COVID. But we still surviving in the commercial space, so that's all good for all of us, quite frankly. Steve, the idea of the slides that you've got there for my company, the first page that you see there, you'll see a site that we've got. A strategy that I've incorporated here is that we're looking at assembling roughly 3,500 units in tertiary and secondary markets here in the state of Texas specifically. I did work with Milestone for years, and they were in 13 states. I'm not that interested at this age of running across, America. So we're staying focused here in Texas. This particular asset is in Longview, Texas. It's what we would consider, in this case, we call it a C+ property, but in really a B+ location. For some of you that may know Longview, this is off of Eastman Boulevard, which runs right into 20 as you go east here out of Dallas. The long story short on this property, the uniqueness is that it's not necessarily an arm's length transaction, but in the commercial real estate space, we use the term capitalization rate a great deal. This property we're able to acquire at around a 14 cap rate, which is pretty unusual. But again, as I say, it's not necessarily an arm's length transaction that is here. Steve, when you go to the next slide that is there, the arithmetic here is that we're in this deal where we will be paying $625,000. At the end of the day, $725 is how the capital stack will look. And we're paying all cash for this asset. Most of the properties that we look at building up towards this 3,500 units that we want to get our hands around here in the state of Texas will probably be the better side of 150 unit to 200 unit properties. I don't think we'll see anything this small. This just happens to be, again, not an arm's length transaction. But as you saw on the first slide, that Steve had up, there's a 3-acre piece of dirt that is contiguous to this that will build another 40 to 50 units. So what we are paying for today, at the end of the day, this project will be about a $6.5 or $7 million asset on a stabilized value with, at that point, 85 to 90 units. And going forward, our investors that we're bringing in at the $725,000, we're marketing this property at $1.5 million from day one. So everybody in this particular transaction is going to get a bump of 100%. That's the uniqueness sometimes in commercial real estate that you find when you're dealing with assets that you can get, at the kind of cap rate that we're speaking of. The next slide, and this is just a small property that was there, 40-unit deal. That would be 85. The next slide that Steve's got up there is we've got an asset that we've been able to secure that was a foreclosure here in Dallas, and it's a hotel. The multifamily space and the hotel space are the two areas that I'm going to be, focused on as far as for MMR going forward over the next decade. And at some point in time, we look to have probably 5 to maybe 8 hotel properties that are all 200 keys or larger is the criteria. And through this pandemic, there's been some great buying opportunities. There's several properties that are in various stages of special servicing, as we say in our business, the commercial space, here in the MetroTex. This happened to be one of them. We are not 100% in there yet, so I can't necessarily go with the location, but as soon as I would tell you, you would know where it is without fail. The renovation budget, which Steve has up here in this particular case, will be into this asset for about $9 million. The rehab, the PIP is a property improvement plan. That's what that acronym stands for. And that will be probably the better side of $8 million. We've got $7 million, 6.7 million is budgeted for the upgrades that'll go into the hotel. And it's nothing different than you see in any hotel when you travel around the country. They all go through a facelift, you know, changing the rooms out, the bar area, so on and so forth. One of the unique things here and strategy that we're using in this particular asset, much like, you know, the first one, which was a small apartment complex, and adding on, we're going to be out of the restaurant business. My mission or the direction of my team is we will be leasing that space out. We have an agreement with Bennigan's, and some of you may know Bennigan's. We're bringing Bennigan's back to the MetroTex. We've signed a $500,000 agreement with them, and we have a vision for putting 30 stores on the ground. Not that we will be the operator of those stores, but we will be the landlord of those stores, much how the McDonald's franchise is set up. Bennigan's will be the restaurant that will go into this particular hotel asset in Dallas once we get the keys to it. So part of the changing out, as I say, we will be out of the food business and truly into the real estate and the rooms, head and bed business, heavy bed, as far as a strategy that I'm going to employ. There's a picture there next, Steve, I believe, of this particular hotel. Next slide. Yeah, there you go. So it gives you a little bit of an idea. Property is 9-story property. It's a great asset. It does have to have some upgrading done to the interiors. That will do, as I say, in that budget, you know, that we have set aside for it. And that's something we look forward to. Probably about June, we should know if we had the keys to it. Next slide, please. That would be the end of my presentation. Let me put it that way.
Well, Victor, it definitely sounds like you've got your hand in a lot of pieces and a lot of opportunities out there. Let's move on to the other panelists. We'll come back to you because I do have a few more questions for you. So
Okay.
Let's go on to Tom Clark. Tom, if you would share or make your, I don't know.
Yeah, I've got control of this one.
There you go.
I just wanted to comment too, so everybody knows that we'll make these presentations accessible and put them up and make them available to the people who are here in the meeting. There'll be a link to them on the commercial page. So if you want to see a more detailed analysis from Victor, it'll be there.
Great.
Tom?
Good morning. This is Tom Clark, and I'm a commercial realtor principal with Transwestern. I've been in the business roughly 48 years. I started with the Baldwin Company, had my own firm for over 22 years and merged with Transwestern back in 2007. So I want to discuss a couple of transactions that I was involved in. And these were all really visions that I had and trying to determine who I thought were the best players to bring the vision to fruition. The first one, as you see the slide up here, this was a recent deal I just completed. It closed in the second week in February. It was 165.5 acres of assemblage of 14 different owners and 42 different tracks. The tracks are outlined. It's on the south side of LBJ Freeway, which is I-20, just west of Interstate 45 and just east of FM 423, Dallas Highway Avenue, if you will. And this, I had started this discussion in talking to every industrial developer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and found one that shared my vision, which was Archway Properties out of Houston with a Dallas partner. Eric Hawk, and they have a capital stack that was provided to them by Black Creek Partners Capital out of Denver. So the deal took almost a year and a half to come to fruition. As I pointed out, there were 42 different tracks, 14 different owners. And, you know, just to date myself, you go back to the Ed Sullivan Show, and they would have these jugglers on there. This one guy would have plates on a stick, and he had to keep all the plates spinning so that none of them hit the ground. And this was what we ran into, if you will, trying to keep everything in place. We approached the transaction by looking at the largest owner owned 7 different parcels, roughly 59 acres. And we decided to attack them first, if you will, to get them under the fold, with the understanding that they were the linchpin in trying to get this thing to fruition, because their tracks were right in the center of this development. You'll notice there's a street that is perpendicular to Cleveland Road, is just to the east of us there, but this is perpendicular that brings LBJ Freeway down to Cedardale Road, which is now renamed Langdon, that comes from Bonneview Lane to the east. We had all the deals were exactly the same, and that is that contracts were all the same. The only change was the obviously the seller's name, the price, and the legal description or size of the piece of vacant land that was part of the assemblage. Very interesting. Once we had determined the pricing that the largest landowner would accept, we used that price as a guidelines after reviewing what we felt values were in the area, and more or less everyone lined up with that in bringing this to fruition, and not only dealing with the initial 59 acre owner, but there was a 25.7 acre owner that owned 3 other parcels in his assemblage. And that was one that we had a little trouble with. And you'll see over there on the southwest corner, you'll see some little residential lots. In order to agree with their pricing and what the buyer felt he could pay for the property, we had to include those lots as at the same price per square foot, so that we could get him to sell us his property. And he wanted to dispose of everything that was on the north side of Cedardale Langdon Road. So in order to achieve that, we achieved our price by including those 10 lots that were over there off of what we call Honeysuckle, which is a little north-south lane that connects, once again, LBJ Freeway with Cedardale. So that was one assembly that came to fruition. As I mentioned, took over a year and a half. The next slide, please. And this is another, and this was an industrial development. That park is being named I-20 Logistics Park. This is another assembly that I did. There were roughly 15 different parcels in this one, and it included 180 acres, and it was on the south side of Cedardale, right in the same area as the previous one. I did this back in 2019 with another major industrial developer. This is now called Cedardale Industrial Park. There were 5 different owners of these 15 different tracts. A family owned the center parcels, and then the largest owner was a 77-acre group, joint venture group that owned the what is noted as track 1 on this aerial display. And they gave us access down to Telephone Road. So we had, the industrial developer had 2 access to this property, one from Cedardale. And Cedardale at that time, prior to the completion of the assembly, the city of Dallas expanded Cedardale into a 3-lane east-west artery that brought traffic from Bonneview, which is an exit off of Interstate 20 LBJ Freeway, and it went westward all the way to the FM 423 and the city limits of Lancaster. So this allowed major access not only east and west, but north and south off of LBJ Freeway at Bonneview. A major developer built a spec 100 or a million square foot distribution center where you see number 2 there on your screen. And that's a million square feet that was recently leased about 6 months ago to FedEx over a 15-year period. So this business park is really come to fruition and is one of the highlights of the South Dallas area. And you'll notice just to the southeast of this is the intermodal Union Pacific intermodal facility for unloading of tractor trailers. And so it helped signify this area as a major distribution center in the Southwest. And as we're all aware, industrial properties, probably the hottest property in the market. Dallas is the #1 distribution center in the Southwest with over 450 million square feet of facilities servicing that. The next slide, we'll go to this. This is a residential development in Rowlett. This was a property that is approximately 252 acres that came to fruition over a year's period. The developer, which is a lot developer, bought the property and went through the rezoning process and also had to develop a municipal utility district, MUD, to bring utilities and bring the infrastructure to the property. It's just outside city limits of Rowlett. The city of Rowlett was very helpful in bringing this to fruition. They supported the MUD district, and this lot developer purchased the property at a per acre price and is reselling the lots, 450 plus lots, to a single home builder, if you will, in the per square foot range. So it came to fruition, as I mentioned, over 1 year. But this, and I think what we try to always bring to the table, and in this case, on all my deals, I try to bring the vision that I have for a piece of property and who I think will, if you will, bring that vision to fruition, in the sense that they see the same thing that I see. They're willing to go out on a limb to spend the time and money to bring the transaction to completion. So this was the case, even though it took over a year, and this did happen during the COVID-19. So a lot of roadblocks were put up. Obviously, initially, city council and planning and zoning committee meetings were postponed. They finally went to virtual Zoom meetings, if you will. And so the normal time frame of maybe 3 to 6 months to get the zoning and the MUD put in place elongated itself out to 12 to 18 months in getting this deal to completion. We didn't close the transaction till the MUD was in place, till all the lots were designed and accepted by the city of Rowlett, and the buyer for the lots was lined up. So that took a little bit more time because of COVID-19, but it came to fruition. Had a very patient buyer working, and the seller was very patient. This was a group that had owned this property for over 25 years. It was another use. It was an equestrian center, and it was known as Freedom Quest, but it was an equestrian center to help servicemen and those with disability to learn about horses, et cetera. So it became a different use, but it was really something that I enjoyed doing. And I just saw the vision of being a major residential development. As we know now, with all the influx of relocations into the Dallas area, we're seeing that housing is a major obstacle, providing housing. That's why the multifamily end of our business is doing so well. Next slide, and I'll just wrap up my presentation, if you will. This is another residential development that once again, I had a vision for. I was contacted by the owner of the property who had a industrial background and said, Tom, this land, which is in the city limits of Hutchins, is really residentially zoned. We need to add workforce housing, if you will, entry-level housing to that market because of, over 25 million square feet of industrial development. You had employees bases in there. Walmart's in that market with 1,000 people. There's other major, FedEx, as I mentioned before. Amazon has 2 major distribution centers within a 9-hour of this location. So you had to have housing to support the employees that were there. This deal came to fruition in a shorter period of time, even though it was in COVID. The land had been foreclosed on by a bank out of Oklahoma. So I seized upon the opportunity. This gentleman had put it under contract simply because he had all the adjoining land, but he didn't have the resources to do residential development. So I took it to who I felt would be the top lot developer in the area. Once again, it happened to be the same group that I'd sold the Rowlett site to. So I had the relationship going. They saw the potential in this. And in fact, they were working on another deal in the Hutchins area the time I approached them with this opportunity, which was 227 acres. There's roughly 95 lots in here. They had pre-sold, the lot developer bought the property, but before he closed on it, has pre-sold every one of these lots when they come to development in the fall of this year to 3 home builders that wanted to be active or were active in that area. So once again, I seized an opportunity where I saw what I felt I could bring to fruition. We had an owner that had bought the land out of foreclosure. So his basis in the property was enough to give him the flexibility to attract a residential developer to the property. And I played that role in bringing this developer to him. And the lots hopefully will be on the ground sometime in the fall of that year. I just, want to close with saying that, we look at these big deals, but in my mind's eye, everything is a big deal in our business. We have an opportunity to get in front of people, to give them our vision of what we see should happen. I always tell the story that, you have a buyer that's looking for only blue buildings, and I get them on the telephone. And I say, I know you only buy blue buildings, but there happens to be a brown building right next to your best blue building on the market. And it's one I think I can deliver at this price that would fit nicely in their portfolio. So, once again, buyers sometimes don't really know what they want, but if you give them an idea that fits in what they think they want to achieve, then I think we can bring a deal to fruition. So once again, there's no small deal. If you get a telephone call and someone says that such and such has referred me to you, I think that's a big deal in my mind, because someone felt enough about your abilities to recommend them to someone else. So you can take that and bring it to an opportunity, whether it's a 1,000 square foot office lease, 2-building complex, apartment complex, or what. It's still a very great opportunity. It gets to be a big deal over time. So with that, I'll just wait till questions follow at the end of each one of the presentations of my fellow presenters. Thank you so much for your time.
Tom, thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge and experience. And I love the vision of the plate spinner. I often use that one myself. So I can see it, and congratulations. I know those land deals are not easy, and they definitely take perseverance. So really appreciate you sharing that with us. Steve, are we moving on to Murphy?
Let's move to Tim Beeler. I'm going to ask Tim to share his screen,
Great.
and then we'll do Murphy afterwards.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. My name's Tim Beeler. I'm an industrial broker at Transwestern. I've been in commercial real estate since '94, starting out as a principal, owning multifamily. And I used to underwrite them on, I still remember the carbon copy leases and the piece of paper and pencil, and I'd erase and go back and forth. And Excel became a thing. I was like, oh, this is great. And fast forward, I started brokering, doing deals for other people in 2008. A couple good friends of mine recommended I get into industrial, and I did what I thought I was supposed to do. Went after some big landlords and got their listings, Prologis and now Link, largest landlords in the world for industrial. And I've been very fortunate to work with folks like Victor and Tom. And I can tell you, just listening to them takes me to another place. I just love hearing how they do what they do because they really are artists and craftsmen in their field. So the property I'm working on, let me share my screen. This is a deal. It's interesting how it came to be. Screen share, and there we go. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Yeah, we got it.
This is property that's over at 183 and the Trinity River between Dallas and Irving. It's Irving address. It's right across from Old Texas Stadium by CarMax and all that in there. So to give you an idea of this property, over here is the CarMax. I had a client that who's an interesting story. He, like a lot of my clients, they end up at a place they don't start out at just because business takes them there. And he had a neat story. He had a little business. He was doing very well. And I walked in on him on a cold call and down the design district. And the client and his dad were just hiring their broker. So I had great timing. And he says, well, listen, we need to buy a building. So he says, here's what I can afford. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, TxDOT's coming through here. They're expanding. But this was several years ago. And I said, I think they've lost their funding. So when they get funded again, I said, they're going to come through and they're going to take the property. But there's a deal over here. The owner knows it and he can sell it. He can give you a good price. So my guy buys this building for $650,000. Literally a year later, TxDOT gets funding, comes through, and he sells this $600,000 building to him to TxDOT for $1.9 million. Since he's the owner operator, they pay him another $900,000 to move and relocate, which was kind of crazy. But I had nothing to do with any of that. The attorney that did it did an amazing job for my client. And then we moved him somewhere else. So TxDOT came through and took down all these buildings that you see in here along 183. So what we ended up with is a remnant, a very dysfunctional remnant that you could put a small warehouse on, which I already knew after talking to the chamber at Irving, Las Colinas, that they wouldn't be too thrilled about having a tiny warehouse there on the freeway. So he said, Tim, can you sell the land for me? I said, well, let me put a sign on it and talk to some of the other landowners over there. And if you can sell more than one piece, then you have something. So ironically, they would put the sign up. The owner on the lot next door had a sliver. He was on the corner. He calls me. And turned out we had a lot of synergies from college wrestling. And he was one of the biggest funders of the Iowa Hawkeyes and helped build their stadium and their current wrestling room. So he and I really hit it off. He buys this little remnant right here. And he owned this. He bought this. And one by one over the next 2 years, we started assembling and we literally have all the way to here. So you can't show in this drawing, but our marketing department wasn't able to make the turn, but he owns all this in here. Then he was just going to build a building, which was his original plan. I said, you know what, before you build a building, now that we've got all this land, because he wanted to invest as well. I said, I know this is coming on the market, and they had a real bad realtor experience. They didn't want to work with a realtor, and they were doing a deal in out near the airport and ended up buying a building. So I said, listen, if you'll cover me on a fee, I can give you information and show you how to put that deal together. So he did, and I got paid on this acquisition. That owner sold this one and that one to him. He got a really, really good below market deal over there. Again, they didn't want to work with a realtor. They didn't have current market information. So my guy ended up getting a good deal. Then I approached a broker that represented the owner on this building over here. And I said, listen, I said, I got a guy that's willing to pay a premium. I said, we're in a top market. I know your guy doesn't usually sell, but if he's going to sell, now's the time because now it's a win. You know, if you wait and ride market cycles and try to sell at a different time, I said, so we can pay you a good price. The broker ended up giving me a good price, which was under what I believe market value was. And I had comps to prove it, but that broker just wasn't aware. He wasn't expecting the call and may not have done his homework. So we got a good deal on this one. Then I've been pinging this person for 2 years. Would you consider selling your building? And finally, when COVID hit this last year, they call up and there was a language barrier. So he has his nephew call me out of Los Angeles. He's a broker from Los Angeles at Marcus and Millichap. And he says, hey, my uncle owns this building. He says, you've been calling him and trying to buy it for the last couple of years. He said, would you still buy it? And we're like, sure. So I said, give us a price. And again, this is a broker from LA leasing a building here, representing a building here in Dallas. Again, his market information, even though he had access to Marcus and Millichap brokers, he didn't have the best market information. We got a good deal there. So we ended up assembling this whole thing and we looked at it and said, what can we do? I showed him a property, I don't have it up on the screen, at 1108 Quaker Street down in the design district. I said, I said, this is an interesting pocket over here. I said, number one, it's a destination. So if you go down to that park and there's McCormick spices, they make spices in there. There's Dr. Pepper, Snapple is in there. And it's a destination. So you don't have a lot of walk-through traffic. It's close to the Trinity River. And if any of you followed the last election, Mike Avalon, even though he didn't get elected, put out some pretty amazing visions for what people wanted to do with the Trinity River and developing and moving forward. So that's a vision to sell downfield, and a good vision that would behoove a lot of brokers to know that have listings anywhere along the Trinity River. So we looked at this project and I said, well, there's a broker in our office. His dad sells condo warehouses to people that want to put cars in them. And he just bought a property, some land around the corner on Loop 12. And he turned around, bought this stuff in some dysfunctional land right there, Loop 12 and I-35, puts these nice high-end condos, and he's selling these things for over 150 bucks to 200 bucks, 210 a foot. I said, well, worst case scenario, we can condo these and sell them. And honestly, these buildings are way better quality. Stuff in the design district, same quality, is going for about that price. So even though these are dysfunctional buildings, according to modern industrial standards, the quality to replicate this building, the brick, the thick, extra thick concrete, which you don't see many buildings unless it's for specific use, have that kind of concrete on the floors nowadays. So I said, the quality is really here. We talked to a couple of folks that have done some redevelopments. And again, I referenced 1108 Quaker. We looked at that property and I said, let me show you what I think this should be. So we took these buildings right here. This was the back of the buildings over here. This is the front and still is right now. What we're going to do is connect all this land, and we should be breaking ground in the next couple of weeks. I got an update from the project manager this morning. This is now going to be the front, and it's going to face with signage facing 183, where 183 and 114 merge and come into downtown Dallas, or go out to either to Love Field or go out to DFW Airport, Irving, Las Colinas. Right here, we're going to eventually, depending on how it evolves, from because what a lot happened in the design district, a lot of these warehouses, because it's something I'm getting ready to share, evolved to offices. When you have people that want office space, and in the design district, they're looking, well, I can go pay 54 bucks a foot in downtown Dallas and $19 in operating expenses, or I can go over here and pay 18 to 25. And that's what happened in the design district. We actually have a 4 per 1,000 parking ratio, which is going to benefit anybody who leases property here. So then We took the development, we had it drawn out. I'm gonna come back to some of these designs. And this is what it's gonna look at. This is just a placeholder. This is not the sign. We're actually interviewing some folks for marketing. It's gonna help us name this project. We got some really good insight from the Irving Las Colinas Chamber, and Steve Brown wrote an article just last week, gave us some really good insight on naming too. So this is what the, right here is what the 183 side is gonna look like. So people will be able to park out here, and they'll be able to bring stuff in here. Then between the buildings right here, this doesn't show it, but it's gonna be a covered walkway. So in between the buildings, there's gonna be not only windows here, there's gonna be windows between the buildings. So a nice covered walkway here, which, as you all know, adds rentable square footage to the property. Then in the rear, it's gonna be loading. However, here's what I wanted to show you. So I polled several brokers that had done these conversions down in the design district. I own 3 buildings down there that I bought, and the demand was just crazy. One building I bought at 65 a foot, turned around, sold it for, excuse me, I bought it at 45 a foot. Literally, I'd love to say it was because of my great brokerage ability. I sold it for 165 a foot, literally almost a year and a half later, just because the market was so hot. I interviewed a bunch of the brokers that did these conversions, and I asked them, what price point, dollar per month, are you seeing these small owners are using? And I got a price point, which told me we can probably hit some high marks at 18 to 20 bucks a foot. We underwrote this thing at 10 bucks a foot, but I think we could hit 18 to 20 bucks a foot, which is going to give my guy just a phenomenal return. I said, what's the most in-demand square footage? And a lot of them said, if you can get these down to 2,000 square feet, we can't keep the listings. And they gave me different sizes. They said, well, these ones last a little longer on the market, having trouble pushing this or this. But if I can hit this square footage, about 2,000 square feet, these things fly off the shelf. Keep in mind, this is for converted warehouse converted to office. And then I looked at some of these things that we would be competing with. None of them have 183 visibility. None of them. None of them have 4 per 1,000 parking. You got to go to a nice downtown building in Uptown to get 4 per 1,000 parking. So what we're going to do is right now we're leaving an office warehouse. We're going to build them. Each bay is going to be a single. So we're going to leave the whole bay. The owner is starting construction. I think it started this week on the first spec office. He's going to office out of that and use it for his business. He's got a very clean use. He distributes oil products to car dealerships. You wouldn't think it's clean, but it's very clean. So his warehouse, you can literally eat off the floor. They keep it so clean in there. So he has his customers come in, they look at the product, and so it's going to be very, very nice. I think I mentioned to you earlier, the guy that designed it is the same guy that designed Trinity Groves. We engaged him after seeing some of the stuff that people weren't familiar with. He did in the design district. And this is the layout. This is a little area, a little dog park area to walk your dog. Hopefully they'll plug into the walkway going over to the Trinity River. And yeah, so that's our project. We're pretty excited about it. In worst case scenario, even if the market crashes and you condo this thing, he'll literally more than double his investment.
That sounds like an amazing deal, Tim. That's really exciting. Anything else you want to share really quick before we move on to Murphy?
Nope. Thank you.
Awesome. We appreciate you being here. Our next panelist, I think, brings a wealth of information and knowledge. Murphy Cheatham, you've got the floor.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time here, and it's funny because I know a lot of people listening into the call. I've made my way in the Dallas-Fort Worth commercial real estate space, really as an agent and then broker with Keller Williams Commercial. So I see a lot of people, good friend Mike Jones, good friend and current client Tasha Pinson, and a few other people on here on this call. I really want to start because a lot of this is, what's going on now and how do I get involved? And I understand probably from a lot of the realtors here on this call, a lot of the big things that these guys talked about before me might be a little daunting on how to just get this done. A little background on me. From the San Francisco Bay Area, I got a bachelor's in accounting from Grambling State University, a master's in real estate development from Arizona State University. And then I moved here to Dallas, Texas in 2007, worked in various real estate development roles, and then jumped out and started my own agency and now brokerage in 2015. I since have come on with Colliers International, and I want to show these deals that we closed in Q4 of last year. And then really, I think it would be important for, show the deals that we closed last year, show a deal I'm working on now out of market that we're now bringing into market, and then answer some questions really briefly to a lot of the realtors on here about, okay, how do I get into this commercial real estate space, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is you see Bonita Gardens, you see Homes of Persimmon, and then you see Rigid Trinity. We closed all three of these multifamily deals Q4 of last year. And anybody who pays attention to my social media or what have you, see I'm constantly posting about how Dallas-Fort Worth is frankly one of the top three markets in all sectors of commercial real estate. Right. So office real estate, just a quick overview. We lost the least amount of office space and did the most amount of deals in office space in the country last year. Retail, as everybody knows, before COVID was getting hit hard. That reduced, but as Victor said, they signed a deal with a restaurant that's coming into the space. So retail is still really strong because a lot of people are moving here. Besides it's California, which everybody hears, right? Illinois, Florida, New York, and in the surrounding areas as well. Industrial, we're number one in the nation for industrial real estate, and I focus on multifamily. To show everybody how competitive this multifamily field is, we're number one in the nation. We leapfrog back and forth between Dallas and Phoenix. Homes of Persimmon, the property in the middle of the slide. To give you a little bit of a background on this deal structure, we had a client, and we're selling a lot right next to this. We had a client put this on the market. We had somebody come in with a 90-day close, and I think the price for this, I think it was right around 17 million. We had somebody come in with a 90-day close and put $300,000 at risk day one, meaning whether they close on this property or not, $300,000 goes to the owner, goes to the seller. At 90 days, they came back and said, "Hey, we want another 90. We need another 90-day extension." Our seller said, "Absolutely not. We have buyers behind him." Right? So let that go. The seller from day one cashed at $300,000. We had another buyer come in with another $300,000 at risk day one and close in 45 days. And this is and so the first buyer was out of Missouri. The second buyer was out of New York. Right. And they are constantly looking for places. So, and I give a lot of people say, "Hey, do you know of any good deals in multifamily right now?" I said, "Yeah, about 5 years ago." Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's the truth. And to a lot of my residential realtors right now, I'm sure you guys are getting buyers like, "Hey, I hear about some good deals in residential real estate." It's like, yeah, you're about 5 years too late. If you want to do it, you got to be really, really competitive. And I see Victor over there laughing. It's the truth right now. So what we're doing is we're focused on the sellers, and we're figuring out how to get the sellers to their price. And I heard somebody say earlier, if you're trying to ride the wave right now and you're looking for a good time to exit, right now it's probably the best time to exit. A lot of multifamily owners, the biggest issue for a lot of sellers is, okay, if I sell, where do I put my money? It's a 1031 exchange, and I'm going to be in the same place that the rest of these buyers are in. So we're having to move their money to a secondary or tertiary market, as you saw Victor doing in another property out in East Texas. We're having to look for deals out there for people, unless they want to give their money to the federal government, right? And we all know no one likes to do it. You gotta kind of have to, but no one likes to do that. So that is the climate that we're in right now in multifamily. If somebody comes to me and say, hey, we want to invest in multifamily, said, okay, show me what you bought in the last 12 years and how much are you willing to put at risk day one. If someone's trying to tie it up and then go find the money after the fact, they're not competitive in this market. And that's just something, as we're all professionals in the space, the number one commodity that we have is the value of our time. So that's just something to let everybody know. The value of your time right now is, if somebody wants to tie something up and then go find the money afterwards, they're just not competitive. They either want to sit this cycle out or go do something else, or play where they do have the cash to play in.
It's definitely a pay to play season, right?
Oh, hands down. And the sellers know it. It's no secret, right? You almost want to tell the local and national news to shut up, right? Like shut up. Quit telling them that it's such a good market, right? Because the sellers know it in the side of the bag, right? So now it's just figuring out what other issue, why aren't they selling? And this is another thing before we go to the next slide. In 2018 and 2019, a lot of major funds came in here and bought up a lot of the market. When I say a lot of the market, I mean portfolios of 25 to 45 properties, averaging 200 to 300 units of property, right? So multi-billion dollar transactions happened in 18 and 19. What does that mean in multifamily? That means if we're within somebody's hold period, if they haven't had enough time to really get to gather equity or stick within their hold period that their fund that's backing them wants to, they're pretty much off the market. So I'm going to keep the slow drip campaign and stay in front of them for 2 to 3 years down the line when they want to sell. But I'm not going to focus on them either, because they're not going to be a likely seller right now. And that's just something, again, providing value and how to understand your target client. If you could go to the next slide, I'm not sure who's managing them. So, and then the next one, that's a property in San Diego, and I'm building up to something. The next slide, that's a property in Scottsdale. And then this is another property in Phoenix. So what we're doing is, and this is going to relationships and adding value. So I got my master's in real estate development from Arizona State. I stayed in contact with a lot of my classmates and then also board members over the years. The last 3 pictures that you saw were the Class A multifamily, completely 100% zero energy. So solar panels on the top. They're selling for between $200 and $300 a square foot, leasing out at $2 and $2.10 a square foot. And we're currently bringing this project here to Dallas-Fort Worth. And I'm a partner in the company. We're also doing a $36 million development in Central Arizona and Casa Grande that we're calling Casa Grande Commons. The big thing, if you all have not heard about this, that's really coming, it's taking over the multifamily industry, is what they call single family for rent. So for people who haven't heard of that, it's essentially, the 3-story podium style multifamilies, the traditional multifamily that everybody's seeing. People are buying 20-acre tracts and putting everything on one floor, right? It's putting everything on one story. So it's really a horizontal multifamily development. The good thing that you're doing is people have that single family lifestyle that they like without people on top or below each other. And then you're able to put a 5x10 backyard with a doggy door there, so people aren't having to go, put their dogs in elevators and you're walking down the hall and stepping over where the dog didn't make it to outside or what have you. And so that's the next hottest thing. Those rents are between 15 to 20% over the regular multifamily rents or what have you. So the single family for rent, build to rent, whatever a lot of people are calling them a lot of different things. That's a new kind of wave in multifamily. One company that's doing it in Arizona and really taking their show on the road is called Christopher Todd. If you guys want to look up Christopher Todd Communities, they have about 3 developments that they're doing now in Dallas-Fort Worth. I'd be remiss to talk about our land listings right now. We have a great 8.25 acre site on 7601 South Polk Street that is zoned for townhouses. zoned for 74 townhouses right now. So that's on 7601 South Polk Street. That's in South Dallas. We have another 22-acre zone multifamily site in South Dallas. That's 3100 Persimmons Road. We have an 11.89 acre site in South Fort Worth, just adjacent to the Fort Worth Distribution Center on Everman Road. That's zoned commercial. And then we have a fourth land site that's coming up. I'll tell everybody, land, multifamily, and industrial is huge right now. Hotels are really coming back. And retail, obviously, if you're surrounded by rooftops and surrounded by incomes, is doing fairly well. But again, as everybody says, that's because we're really, really blessed to be in Dallas, Fort Worth. Call people in a lot of places, and they're really not seeing that right now. So I tried to blow through this because I know we have about another 10 minutes left for open questions. But I'm available for any questions or anything anybody has.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Murphy. It really is great to hear what you're working on, some of the things you're doing, and definitely that BTR or the build to rent product is huge. I got a lot of land deals that, it really allows them to pay somewhat of a premium for the dirt and still get their return, and the landowners love it. So
Right.
yeah, I think we're going to see more and more of that. So great stuff. Charlandra, are there any questions that we have for our panelists today?
There are no questions in the chat right now.
Okay. I love that we're going to get maybe some Monte Cristos with Bennigans coming back in. Love the plate spinning Tom visual. That's fantastic. Tim, the relationship and the value you bring is all your value is amazing. I love it. And, Murphy, your education and, just really being that positive influencer in our market. This is what it's about. This is what we are supposed to do as commercial practitioners. And, I love that you guys shared your story, and, there's so much out there going on, and love to get this word out to all of our MetroTex members and in the commercial community and even the residential. I think it's great for them to know what all is going on the commercial side. So, Steve, is there anything else that you have?
No, I don't have anything else. I just want to let everybody know again that we will provide a link to all these presentations to make them accessible. Give me about 2 days to get that out to everybody, and we'll have this stuff available. I would just comment that all of the presenters have a lot of detailed analysis information in their presentations. It just doesn't work very well to try and show that on the screen in Zoom meetings. So if you need more analysis, it will be there, or contact them and they can provide it.
Awesome. Steve, would it be possible to circulate an email with the just the contact information of everyone?
Yes. For the presenters or for everybody who attended?
Oh, for the presenters. If anyone has a question, they want to reach out, maybe schedule some one-on-one time. I know everyone's time is valuable. So, but obviously, learning from the pros is really what it's about.
Yeah, if they'll each give me a thumbs up that I can do that, I'll go ahead and put it together and send it out. Yeah. All right.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate everyone who made time for today. Thanks for zooming in, tuning in, and really appreciate all of the presenters and everyone here on the call. Thank you for your help and being part of it. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.